guys, welcome back to the Bro and a Pro podcast where we hope to help you reach your full potential, whether that be inside or outside the gym. I'm your main host, Jeremy So, self-proclaimed gym bro, and I'm joined today with my co-host, Nicole Tan, IFBB Pro. Pro Bikini.
Bikini Pro.
Bikini Pro.
Hello, guys. I am back.
Same. I guess, pro cards are super important, right?
Of course they are.
Is it as good as getting a PhD?
I mean, when you get your PhD, you're in a class with like everyone else that's also getting the PhD. Whereas like when you win your pro card, you're like the only person winning your pro card like on stage. So I think like the experience is like different.
Fair call.
That is a very crazy question.
That is a crazy question.
It
it just kind of brings me to the idea. So I was thinking the other day, I had someone to come up and talk to me about
being a pro.
Not being a pro, but like how you have to look the part, being a PT, being in the fitness industry, that you got to practice what you preach.
But do you really have to?
See, it's a really tough one. Like I know some guys who have created great businesses and have, do an amazing job coaching clients, and they may not necessarily be the biggest individual, and, or like train the hardest, but they know their concepts very, very well. Like they're very, very educated, or they might be on the other side of the spectrum that they may not look the part, but they actually know a lot.
I think it has to be a half-half. Because I don't mind. So if someone used to be at their prime ages ago, and then now they're like, I'm just going to move to coaching, so I don't train that often, and like I don't track my macros anymore. But back in the day I did, or like back in the day, like, I was heavy and then I lost a lot of weight. Like they've done it before. They felt it. Or like if it's a comp prep coach that they have competed before at least a couple of times, they don't have to be a pro. Like I really don't think that you need to be a pro to be a coach. If anything, I think it's better to not be a pro to be a coach, not an active pro anyways, because, we'll have limited amount of like capacity, of course. So people, obviously the big coaches with big teams, obviously they don't have time to like be a pro or like train like a pro or things like that. And most of them, I think, just kind of are too busy to look after themselves.
I mean, you are all business first, then you are like competing journey, especially if you've got a massive team. But it does really make me think about like the idea that, at the end of the day, we shouldn't judge other people for what their brand is about, right? Like, I feel like it's really dumb to do that, because I'm like, why? Like, what do you get out of saying, oh, that person is a fit to be a PT? Like, in what way do you think that? Like, you don't know their personal journey. You don't know what they've gone through to get there, what they had to overcome, their failures, their successes, whatever it is, right? And at the end of the day, the consumers are the ones deciding who they want to buy off, So like if they have clients, great for them. I'm happy for them, because that's their clients have chosen them, and that's great. But you shouldn't sit on the outside and like, oh, you shouldn't choose that coach. You should pick me instead of him. Like that sort of attitude. I'm like, I don't really get it. Like, cause it's kind of like the idea of like gyms. Like, yes, okay, who trains at Snap Fitness or Jets?
Don't call out the Stamina and Jets.
Hopefully we do not get sued. So I'm not calling them out, but they do a great job in targeting a certain demographic and niche. And I'm saying that there's gym for everyone. I was talking to someone today saying that they just didn't like the big gyms because they're just too intimidating, and they like to go to a quieter gym.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes total sense. There's always a fit for everyone. It doesn't need to be like this idea that, oh, we're like, that gym's shit. Like, there's a gym for everyone. Like, you're not buying from it, so why do you have to chuck in your 2 cents?
I think when people pick a coach, it's sort of like a relationship, right? Just because a guy is the most good looking doesn't mean they have like any substance to them at all. Like they may be like super boring or super toxic or whatever. And that's the same with a coach. Like, yeah, they may look great on the outside, but if the client doesn't get along with that coach, then like that's not the coach for you. So it's just all about the coach as a person and the client as a person, and whether they're right for each other. Like some coaches may have a very kind of hard love mentality, and they definitely look like they tick all the boxes every day. Like they're so strict, like they never drink, they never eat McDonald's and whatever. And some clients may resonate really well with that. They are both just kind of equally as hardcore and crazy as each other, and that would work. And then obviously there are some people that actually may look at someone that has a really good physique and feel like that's too intimidating for them. Like maybe they prefer someone with not that great of a physique. I don't know. But it's just like whatever suits the person, right? Just pick someone that you feel can guide you in the right direction, that you feel comfortable with, that you can open up to, and that you can like communicate well with, I think.
And don't be a keyboard warrior. I guess
Are you talking about someone?
No, I'm not talking about that. Like, not talking about the individual. I'm just talking about like, having your 2 cents about anything.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't judge anyone based on it. Like, there's a coach for everyone.
Yeah,
and
there's a
like,
coach
there's
for
no need to be
everyone.
like this superiority complex of, oh yeah, I'm better than these people, so like I should be taking their clients. Like, that makes no freaking
just because you
sense.
have a six pack doesn't mean you should get all the clients.
Exactly. Like, some people might find that intimidating. Like,
And you may just only look good and you don't really care, or like
exactly.
we don't
And the
know.
person who doesn't have the six pack might actually care about you more.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna show more care and love, like that. You don't have to live that sort of lifestyle. So, yeah, I think that it's just kind of just brought me on that topic. I thought just
It's been on your
so,
mind.
not being on my mind. It just kind of came to me as we were talking.
You're
As we
talking to
kind of
your
started
client,
thinking, I was
yeah.
like, hey, you know what? That kind of I want to talk about that, like, because I think it's an interesting topic that probably does go around, but people don't really talk about much. They say behind the closed doors.
Oh yeah, people all definitely have these conversations, but not like in the public. They just say to each, "How's that person a PT? They're so fat."
Yeah. But you hear it all the time. Like, the amount of times I've heard it, it's like, oh yeah, that person's a PT. Like,
Yeah, and then it puts
I'm
pressure
just
on
like,
all the PTs
what?
and coaches that we have to look good all the time.
Exactly.
You know, what used to make me really nervous is when I would have my random nights out. And like, so if people don't know me, like I am very strict, like 90% of the time. And then occasionally, like if I do eat out, I can really eat. And then I love to party from time to time. And when I party, I really party. And when I drink, I really drink. And then sometimes I'll just meet people out. And they're like, oh, like, you're Nicole Tan, like, this. And then I think one time when I used to PT at Good Life, they're like, oh, I see you, you're PT at Good Life. And I was so drunk. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Did not want people to see me.
I still get that now. I mean, like, when I go out and they're like, you're Mr. S Legion. And I'm like, oh
And
my
you're like, I'm really
God.
drunk
I'm
right
like,
now.
first of all, where do I know you from? What have you seen content wise? And they're just like, yeah, I've seen like your content. I follow you on Instagram. I'm like, sick. Cool. I'm like, I'm not saying that you can't come say hi to me. It's totally fine.
I mean,
But it's
still
just like,
come say
it
hi
puts
to
us in a
us.
position that's awkward a bit because we're like, shit, should we not be doing this? Should we be setting a better example? Like, not party and just live under a rock?
Yeah. I think another time I saw someone and it was at like a Korean barbecue place or whatever. I'm like, I don't eat like that all the time.
Just occasionally.
Just sometimes.
Just having some
sometimes.
sort of balance.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe some people might like the fact that, athletes and coaches are like not perfect all the time. And sometimes they may look at that as like a green light to just let their life spiral.
What if
But-
you can look this good and still be able to party and eat what you want?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
But I think people don't see is like the basic shit we do every other day that leads up into that one day that we might go out to enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're still training, we're still doing our cardio, we're still getting back on track, we're still doing everything up until that point. It's not like we just scrap and do that every single day, because we don't.
And I think you need to grind to a certain point until you achieve the look that you want. And to achieve that look, you do have to be disciplined. Like, you have to maybe not drink for a while, for a long time, until you achieve like your fat loss goal, or like if you're stepping on stage. Like, when I'm prepping, I do not drink a drop of alcohol. I know there are like some people that think you can work alcohol into your macros. That
What?
will never be me. That will never be me as a coach. I will never allow any of my clients to do that, and I will not do that for
For
myself.
prep.
Yeah, there's actually like people who
Prep
do
is
that.
prep. We discussed this. If you're going to do prep, that's the choice you made. Suffer.
But they're like, I'm still hitting my macros. I took
No.
consideration of this one glass of wine into it, and they just don't get it. But
There's so much proof and evidence-based research to suggest that, alcohol does have an effect on your body.
very
You-
negative effect on your body.
Yeah, so
and
either way, just don't do
yeah.
it.
Just-
don't
just-
try to work it in. That's just dumb.
don't do it if you're trying to prep. Prep is already an unhealthy process on your body. And to add this toxin into your body during that time where you're so fragile, like, it just doesn't make sense. It's going to mess with your sleep. It's going to mess with your muscle recovery. Like, why even do that for just one glass of wine? Like, what is that actually really doing for you? Like, I don't get it. And I never will. And yeah. But But in the off season,
Mm.
love me some soju.
Sweet. So I have a question, right? So when you're dieting, obviously on a fat loss phase or comp prep even, do you unfollow food on IG?
No. Why would I?
I mean, there's a thing that, people would say that you just unfollow it because if you don't see it, you don't.
But also with the algorithms these days, if you don't like the post, it just won't come up.
No, so I think Instagram now has eye tracking. So even if you don't like the post, if you spend some time looking at something,
Then don't look
they
at
will
food.
know. But I think the idea comes across because some people will say that it's easier to just cut out the foods out of your life. So if for example, you're in a fat loss phase and you just started out dieting for the first time, they're like, don't have the food in the house because if it's there, I'm going to eat it. What does this do or set you up mindset wise? I think a lot of times it sets people up for failure because they're like in this, if it's in front of me, I'm going to eat it mindset. Like, don't if you're listening to this and you agree that, oh, you're that person, then I'm telling you now, that's the worst way to look at your food. Like, you shouldn't look at food that way, and you have to practice your self-discipline and practice saying no to it. Like, put that food in front of you, and yes, maybe 20% of the time you might crack and break and eat it, but 80% of the time, if you keep saying no, you eventually have more discipline. You eventually have more grit that you're like, no, I don't need to have it. Because when you're in that mindset of like, oh, if it's in front of me, I'm going to have it mindset, I can guarantee you're not going to make this a lifestyle. Like, you're not going to be able to keep that weight off forever because if it's in front of you, oh, I guess it fell into my mouth. It's like, come on, seriously? Let's be real. Like, it did not fall into your mouth.
That is a really good way to think about it and do it if it's to improve your relationship with food. But if someone just like, they have like a 10-week deadline to like look good for a wedding and they just need to get the shit out of their house, I'm like, get the shit out of your house. But why do you even have it in your house in the first place?
Shouldn't your, like, if you're a family, like, you have kids.
Okay, if you have kids, different story.
Yeah, and then I've seen parents that eat their little kids' chips.
Oh, yes, no, yeah, that gets me. And then, because I think like I had someone who was just like, I was packing my kid's lunchbox and I just can't help myself. And I'm like, so you're taking the food away from your child? Is what you're saying. Like, why are you eating the food? Like, you bought it for them, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do you have to eat it? Like, eat your own food.
I think if you have a deadline, your why should be very high. Like, your why you need.
But I mean,
your why should be like, look, I have a 10-week deadline. If you want to make it happen, you will make it happen no matter what. There's so many people I work with, and you just hear excuse after excuse after excuse, and it's just.
What about then
they make it sound like it's not an excuse, but I'm like, it almost sounds like it. Like, if you listen to yourself right now, oh, I don't have time to do cardio. Oh, I don't have this equipment at my gym. Oh, I don't. I can't get these foods at the moment. Then I'm like, so what do you do then? Like, do you just give up? Like,
I'm sure that's why they ask you for like an alternative.
No, but like, what if they all come at one go?
What do you mean, all these
Like,
things?
all those things happen.
Okay, yes, and then people get
it sounds
overwhelmed,
like-
and then they're just like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we want to make it as simple as we can. Like,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
always
yeah.
try to adapt. We listen as well as we
Yeah.
can. But like, you should be in a mindset that's like, hey, I've got these problems. What do I do to fix it?
Yeah.
Not like say it in a way that it's almost like, oh, like, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm like, why don't you make time? Why don't you find an alternate route of like, okay, if you can't have this, what options do we have then to then change it? Like, as in, give me options so I can help you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
if it's food quality, for example, like if you don't have a food on hand, tell me the things you can get. So at least that way I can implement it straight away.
Yeah.
Instead of like waiting for me to ask you, so what food options do you have? Like, it's almost like you're not really setting yourself, you're not really trying your best. Okay, your equipment, you don't have equipment on hand. Okay, cool. What
I have
exactly,
this,
what
this,
can we
this,
swap
this.
this? Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Give me alternatives.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're not mind readers. We
Yeah.
we can't predict exactly what you have. Same as cardio. Like, bunch up the cardio in a week. Ask, is there another way to do the cardio that I can make sure I can fit it in?
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I can't do the cardio. Like, saying you can't do it, it's completely different to I want to do it.
Yeah.
Like.
Or if they're like, I can't do it this Tuesday, or I can't do it this week, can I make it up by doing double next week? Like,
Yes.
so show that, you are trying to find a solution and not just like saying you can't as an excuse, I think is what you're trying to get at, right?
Yeah, probably along those lines. I feel like it's just a very common thing.
Yeah.
It's very common that, like, at the end of the day, we're here to help. As coaches, we listen to our clients' needs and what they need help with. But sometimes you've got to think for yourself and put yourself in the driver's seat, because that's the majority of what we do. We give people the plan, they put themselves in the driver's seat. They're the ones that need to make it work. If you want something to work, you'll make it happen.
Yeah. Speaking of cardio, you just mentioned, reminded me of a conversation that I had with my client this week, because she always wants to know, like, what the most, like, optimal way is of doing things. So I think she heard that obviously it was better to have your cardio sessions 6 hours away from your weight training session. And she wanted to know, if she should do that. And obviously there is a lot of different ways that we can talk about, like, when it comes to cardio. And also another question she asked was like, oh, is it different if you would do, say, 3 1-hour cardio sessions or like 6 30-minute cardio sessions? Like, what is better? What is more optimal? Because obviously being a good client, they want to make sure they're doing everything the most optimal way. But at the end of the day, what is the most optimal is what is the easiest for that client to get in. Usually, like, even if it's more optimal to have a cardio session away from the weight training, not everyone can go to the gym twice a day. Like, most people don't have time to do that. And also, if you purposely split it up for optimal, and then you have to go back in the evening, so like, say, after work, and if you're in a country where you have to take public transport, so after work you finish at 6 o'clock, you public transport to the gym, you do your extra like 40 minutes of cardio, then by the time you get home it's like really, really late, and you have to cook up dinner, and then you'll be sleeping at 12 o'clock, and then that will eat into your sleeping time. So is that more optimal? Or, like, is it, most optimal to do it when suits you the best? I think when it comes to cardio, it's all about what will fit your schedule the best, what you can get in the easiest, like what can you do to ensure it gets done. So if someone's just like, look, I just don't have time to do an hour of cardio in one block, like, so like, say 3 times a week of that, and it's much easier for them to split it up into 6 30-minute blocks or whatever, then obviously that's going to be the better way for them. And I think, like, again, coming back to when you said, like, when people say they can't do that, they need to give alternatives of like, how can I maneuver my cardio in the week to make sure, like, it gets done. Like, either do I put it 15 minutes post my training session today, and then tomorrow on like a rest day from training, I can do my extra like half an hour there to make that 45 minutes. It's all about finding something that works for you in your schedule and proving that, like, that's what you want, not just saying like, oh, I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a want, if it's a need, like, you need to lose this weight, then you make it happen. But going back to your question about whether it's what's the most optimal, as you said, it's the what's most optimal in your lifestyle.
Yeah, for you as a person.
For your lifestyle, I
Yeah.
think that's the most important. That takes precedence. As long as it doesn't eat into your sleep quality and your stress levels of like, I have to fit this in,
Yeah.
then I think it doesn't really matter when you do it. I
Just
think
not before training. Just not before weight training.
Not
Yeah,
before
there's only
weight
one
training.
rule.
Unless
don't
you
cardio
separate
before
it and you do
weight
cardio in the morning, and then 6 hours later you eat a few meals and then
training.
you go train.
Like, nobody has
then
time
that's
for
fine.
that, honestly.
But
in real
people
life.
generally train in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost like the question people ask, like, when is the optimal time to weight train?
Yeah.
And as we know, I think it is around that 4 or 5 p.m.
I thought it was like 12 o'clock, like midday,
was
or
it
someone
midday?
said that.
I don't know. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
midday or personally, I like the midday training. I mean, I don't do that as well because you then have to consider what sort of work you do. And I think, I was talking to one of my clients today about, decision-making fatigue. And everyone's, for dudes, for all the lads listening,
dudes
all
out
the
there.
bros listening, we actually have a lower amount of decisions we can make per day compared to females. So hence why the women shouldn't get mad at us at the end of the day when we're like brain dead and tired, because we actually don't have.
They can't even decide what to eat for dinner.
Exactly. So that's why we're chill and easy, we're relaxed, So obviously you guys, huh?
Nothing.
But the idea is that, potentially, like, decision making is something that, he was mentioning that, oh yeah, like, he didn't know why he felt more tired or unmotivated. And I was like, look, is it potentially he had a change in job 3 months ago? And I'm like, is that requiring more decisions that you have to make on a daily? Because, everything we do in life, when we do something for like 5 years, you're going to be on automation. It's autopilot. How you reply to a client, how you reply to things, it becomes like almost automated to an extent because you've done it so many times. You go to work, you drive the same route to work. You're not gonna be like thinking about what cars on the road. You just kind of just drive to work unconsciously because you know how to drive there. Then you go to work, you go about your day, you probably do the same thing. Maybe you go and sit in the toilet for 15 minutes at 8:30 to kill some time. Then you get back, you reply to some emails, and then you go talk to someone else and you go chill, go get a coffee. You do the same things. And it's very low decision making because you just want to be in this comfort zone. And I think when you change your job, this requires more decision making. It's changing the way you process, and your brain is trying to function a bit more. And so this motivation to train becomes harder. So when he's training, he's just like, I just don't feel motivated. I don't know why. Like, I'm sleeping all right. Like, stress levels are good. But then it's because he's changed something in his life that's required him to require more. His brain requires more energy, that when he actually gets to train, he doesn't have the energy or the decisions to make to be like, I want to go train now. So that's the reason why, like, personally, I train in the morning, is because it's not because I know the optimal time to train is definitely in the afternoon, whether that be 12 or 4 p.m. But for me, I know I'm going to be tired by the end of the day. I don't want to be like at the gym at 4 p.m. or,
Can't do
even
that
2,
anymore.
3 p.m. and be like, I'm super fatigued right now. I don't have the brain capacity to actually get in. So I think, decision making is a huge part of it. If you realize this, you start to realize,
Brain power.
brain
like,
power,
Yeah.
because your brain uses glycogen.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked to AJ on the weekend.
Yeah.
He was mentioning about how much percentage is the brain made out of fat. It's like 70% or something like that.
It's a good amount. And that's something
Yeah.
new that I learned. I'm like, the brain is mainly fat.
That's what he said, like based on some seminar he went to with some PhD
Like your brain is
talking
made
about
out
brain.
of a good amount of fat.
Yeah, and so when you get brain dead, and he was just talking about how like this potential scarring of the brain, or this neurons that get deactivated because when you get super lean and shredded, you get this brain fog. And we're like, oh, brain fog is just due to your metabolism slowing down, your thyroid slowing down, and you just have no more energy in your brain. But realistically, your brain's actually getting leaner.
That's
and
crazy.
Then he mentioned that how it potentially could be causing problems. Obviously, there's no hard
That is
evidence
at a
yet.
very, very kind of like extended period of time of being stage lean, which again, most people are not.
Yeah, but like the
so-
continuous dieting phases could be
Yeah.
affecting our brain.
Yeah, that's if like someone like competes like nonstop for a year, kind of a situation. So if someone just needs like a show a year, like it's not anything too crazy. Yeah, it just really depends on how lean you get, because some people have to diet for a longer period of time if they're losing fat at a slower rate, so it doesn't actually affect them that badly.
And I guess like going back to your question about what cardio is best mode of cardio.
Not really
Like
mode
30
of cardio.
minutes,
It's
an
just kind of like,
hour.
does it matter like, how you split
just
it
remember
up
one
and
thing:
stuff?
cardio is just a tool.
Yeah.
It's
It's just a
tool.
calories out tool.
It's just the calories. It helps you put in your calorie deficit. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
But what
all
do you
it is.
prefer? Do you personally prefer to have like less cardio sessions but longer, or more cardio sessions but shorter? I'll go first.
You can't ask the question and go first.
Yeah, because I know you take some time to think about it, so I'll just answer
Oh,
first because
okay,
I already
yeah.
know my answer. Right?
I already got
'Cause-
my answer as well.
Oh, you do? Okay.
No,
I thought
but you can go
I
first.
thought you had to think about it.
No. We'll let you go first. So I can see
Alright.
how you answer.
Yeah, so I prefer more sessions but shorter, especially because I like to do my cardio post workout, because I hate to drive. Everyone who knows me knows I hate to drive. The gym is really not that far from my house, literally 10 minutes. But if I had to go home 10 minutes and then like come back out another 10 minutes and then go back home another 10 minutes, I really cannot be fucked to do that. So I will weight train and then do my cardio after. So because I've already kind of like depleted my body from the weight training, I only have a certain amount left I have to give for a cardio session. I also believe in like the energy balance for the day. So because I have to grow a lot of muscle, for me personally, compared to most other people, like growth is still my number one thing, and muscle retention, despite if I do cardio or am in a deficit or not. I feel like in that day, if I did too much cardio on like that same weight training day, it'll take away from my recovery of that particular muscle group I just trained. So if I spread out my cardio so that I evenly burn like similar amounts like most of the day, so one day is not like extra burn than the other, then I won't really be taking away too much nutrients from a specific muscle group.
Yeah. Very detailed.
It's just my theory.
Very, very, very specific. I think like for my point of view is just I rather do it in shorter blocks. Yeah, very, very simple. I mean, the answer was pretty straightforward. I mean, like if I was gonna do an hour cardio one day, I'd rather just do it 20 minutes at a time. It's just easier. mentally, like I feel like it's better on the body. Like getting into cardio, doing an hour. I would assume that you're doing an hour separately, right? Like as in from weight training. Or you mean like
No.
straight after weight training?
Yeah, like straight after. Because some
Yeah,
people do that.
I'd rather
I mean, I do that at the peak of my
Oh
prep,
yeah,
obviously.
peak of
when I'm
prep.
prepping. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll do
yeah.
an hour cardio, whatever I have to. If I do an hour and a half, and I've done it an hour and a half before,
Yeah.
I'll freaking do it.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the cases that it's 20 minutes, like I'd rather do just the 20 minutes post workout and just slowly build up from there.
Yeah.
Like if it becomes 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35, and eventually gets to an hour, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Like I'll do whatever it takes. I mean, like if that is the case, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So I guess I want to talk about, people changing programs. And most of the time, do you think the programs suck or is it the person performing the program that sucks?
Wait, I need more context. Like, how long have they been on the program? Why do they say they want to change? Are they bored, or they feel like they've plateaued, or what is the reason?
Yeah, I think they just plateaued.
What do they mean by plateaued?
They're
as
not
well?
getting stronger.
Train harder.
I mean, that solves all problems. I mean, I was talking this to Paulie Vu, and he was just like talking about
like, why are you not getting stronger? Have you tried and failed though? Like that, I need to know these things, So like, if they're really actually hitting failure at the exact same rep every single week, I find that very, very hard to believe. I don't think I've ever encountered that in my whole life. If you actually hit failure, because sometimes if you hit failure too often, actually you start to regress. Because I've done that myself.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when I hit my bench and stuff, like I definitely feel like I regress sometimes.
Yeah,
Or I
it's
just stay the
normal,
same, and then like anything can affect it. Like especially those top heavy sets. Sometimes if I have shit sleep, shit water intake,
it's more
not enough
likely you
fuel.
regress than that plateau.
I guess it's like people always think that this new program they start is
To
always
shock
so
the
good.
muscle?
Like it's almost like they started one program, they signed up to a new program, and they all of a sudden got massive gains. And I'm like, how do you know it's not just from consistent training? Like, I mean, if you're going from your first 5 years of training,
How are they measuring this progress is what I want to know. Like, how do they know they all of a sudden got massive
I don't
gains?
know, maybe like visual changes. It could be visual, it could be strength changes. It's too hard to say.
Yeah, it's
like,
hard to say.
It's like, this idea of periodization that we can actually calculate, like, powerlifters do this a lot. Obviously, respect all powerlifters out there, freaking hard, but like they strategically plan it in such a way. But, some weeks are going to be bad weeks and you're not going to hit any of those numbers. So like, it's not always the case, especially in bodybuilding where everyone wants to train to failure. I think the problem is that everyone always wants to train to failure. And sometimes it's not always required too.
Yeah, I know I'm someone that always talks about like, training really hard and stuff. But yeah, like it's actually not good to hit failure on every single exercise every single week. Because like I said, you will regress. And I've seen it myself. Like you keep hitting failure and then you just all of a sudden just get weaker. Like you actually won't be able to hit that same weight with the same amount of reps anymore. Like you'll actually start to go backwards. And that's how you know you've kind of reached your limit. And that's a good place to be as well. You kind of know.
But that's only if you're like super advanced.
Yeah. So it doesn't happen to a lot of people.
If you can hit failure without set intensifiers, then you're actually like training hard. Because training hard and adding set intensifiers doesn't mean you're training hard. You're just finishing off extra reps that you could have done in those sets. Like I think a lot of times people put like, oh, I'll just do drop sets. Or I'll just like do like, extra like rest pause sets or whatever it is as set intensifier. And I'm like, well, is that really going to failure like in your working sets? It's not really, like realistically. Like real failure is that you just barely hit the last rep.
When I say failure, it's definitely not like, not intensify. Like fail means like your top set, like you failed. Like I'm sure everyone who's like watched my stories, like you've seen me fail. Like when I fail, like I really fail. Like you can't lock the arm out anymore. Like you're trying and you're like literally grinding it out and it's just not happening.
Yes. And I think that also, it's interesting because some people would then start to play the scenario in their head because we teach people how to hit failure. It's like, velocity of rep slows down. You're really grinding those reps out. The last rep feels like death, but I almost feel like sometimes some people just play that scenario in their head and then make the last rep harder than it actually is. Like if you just calmed yourself sometimes and just close your eyes.
Like they purposely pretend to grind it?
No, not purposely, but they almost tell themselves it's hard, it's hard. And then like they just push it and it's just like not going anywhere. But realistically, they can still do it. Yeah. But then it's also like that fine line, the question I get asked a shit ton a lot by my clients is always, how do I know, like, do I sacrifice my form to go heavier?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Depends on how advanced the client is. If they are a beginner, 100% no. If they are intermediate, yes, if it's like the second half of your program. So, like you're running a 12-week block, I run 12. So, if it's in the last 6 weeks, sure, form can get a little bit sloppy because the first 6 weeks you were perfect. If you are
Let me just
very
say quickly,
advanced,
just let me break that down. That sloppy means only the last few reps.
yeah, not from the beginning, not from the
yeah, but
beginning.
you said sloppy, it almost sounded like you said, obviously, I know that's not what you
Yeah,
meant.
no,
But I don't want people to take out of context that, oh, so last week I can just make everything sloppy. No.
No.
It means the last 1 or 2 reps can be like sloppy being 100% being perfect, 80%, that's it. 20% dip in form, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Not a 50% dip in form.
Not even dip in form,
not
but
even-
maybe using a little bit more momentum than you usually would or
Yes,
stuff like that.
yeah,
Usually when I
yeah.
say sloppy, I mean using momentum because I'm a big fan of control, like controlled, crispy, like nice looking reps. Usually the swinging and using a bit of more velocity and stuff like that, I'm not usually a fan of. However, I myself now being much more advanced, sometimes I do train a little bit more like that in order to get a couple more reps than I would have. However, it's only because regardless of my sloppy form, I still feel really good mind muscle connection in those muscles. And I think this is where when people see the very advanced bodybuilders and they definitely like, kind of swing around a little bit more and all that kind of stuff as someone who's like rowing and just like kind of ripping it and stuff like that. And the way they do it, it's totally different from like when a beginner does it, because I think like someone who's super advanced, and like I said, those like big bodybuilders people see on YouTube and stuff like that, they can feel it so well, even though it doesn't look like it's the most textbook perfect form. And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to like letting your form not be 100%.
And I think the other thing is that those big bodybuilders have a shit ton of muscle.
Yeah,
So
they can
as in
feel
like
it,
their
like-
muscles will look different when they're doing the movement.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
their bodies rock because it's more noticeable on their massive full muscles.
Yeah, their big frame.
Their big frame. Obviously, if you're like nowhere close to them and you're rocking the same as them, I'm like, what are you rocking? There's no muscle that you're rocking.
Yeah.
To be fair. So I think like obviously, yes, they have great mind muscle connection. So like
Yeah.
even though you may think that they're just using momentum, they're not. They're not
Yeah.
actually like they're
They can
using
feel
momentum
every single
just
contraction,
to
yeah.
make sure they hit those really stimulating reps that they need to
Yeah.
hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a very fine line. But I think like even as a beginner, I still think like to an extent, like going to failure is good if you do it safely. Like, safely is the most important part. And if you do it towards the very end of a rep, like I think it's just about pain tolerance thing. There's no levels of this because you could be an advanced person and still train not that hard.
No, I thought you meant like the question was whether like, it's okay for your form to get a bit sloppy in order to like.
Yeah, lift more form.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you brought up the idea of beginners, intermediate, and advanced.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think there's a level of that because I think like most beginners, intermediate, advanced, like you could be intermediate or advanced and still not train very hard. Like
Yeah,
you
but
could,
I
you
think
have
your
good-
form should still be number one if you're a beginner. Like always prioritize.
But then what if you're
form.
intermediate? You've been training for like 10 years and you have pretty good form and technique. Still could not be trained
I
hard
think if
enough.
you train for 10 years, you're not intermediate, you're advanced.
Okay, well, like even advanced
Yeah,
people can
advanced, I
still
said
train.
yeah,
They
go
have 15 years of experience. They
Yeah.
train semi-hard, but then my muscle connection isn't there. So like, yes, you're training hard, but you're still not hitting the right intensity level. You still have to make sure you hit all the right variables of what you need to hit, which I think is important. So yeah, it's just kind of like a question that we get asked a lot. But
Good
just,
question.
yeah, just towards the end, I think it'll be good. Hey, so I got another question. So another thing that comes up. So I do have a decent amount of clients. So I guess like this is where I get all the questions from.
All your inspo comes
And then
from
some
the
of my
clients.
ideas come from, and I think about
Yeah.
it. I thought about this. I wrote it down. I said, someone who trains hard, or like let's just say, if someone comes to you and they go, "I train hard," like I come to you, I say I train hard. You don't know who I am. Some everyday gym girl.
I probably won't believe you straight away.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say.
I'm like, okay,
I was gonna
okay,
say
tell me
that I
more.
can promise you that most gym goers who have above average physiques will never say this. because most people who are above average will always say that we can do things better. Like, to be fair, like, I'm not saying I'm above average. I'm just average, you know, everyday gym bro, you know. But yeah, I'm a bit above average, right? So I would say, like, you know, anyone that you ask this to that has a pretty good physique, like that you're like, this guy looks good or this girl looks good, they're not gonna be like, I train hard. If anything, we're always the most hardest on ourselves. They're saying that probably could have been better. I could train harder. I could train better. There's never really a perfect session unless we're like, it's actually a really fucking hard
Yeah, it's very
session.
rare that I actually walk away from a session being like, yeah, that was absolutely.
Yes, because
you
we're
know.
always in the mindset of trying to improve. I feel like someone who comes to you and say confidently, eye to eye, and go, I train hard, I can almost promise you that they don't. I hate to.
I know, I feel like I do say that sometimes, but I don't know in what context though. Like, you know, I don't know, maybe if someone asked me or.
I think it's more like no, it's not saying like if someone asks you, you'd be like, yeah, I train pretty hard, but like it's someone who like boasts about it.
Oh yeah, I don't go around
Like
wearing
yeah, I
it like a
train hard, I
badge.
know what I'm doing, you know, like you get those gym bros who probably do that a lot, like, you know, but then they have like average physiques, you know. You can't like, but do you actually train hard? Like,
You know what's actually worse than that is
What?
that there's a lot of people that don't train hard and have very above average
yeah,
physiques.
but
Like they really look really
yes,
good.
and those are the people that always say they train hard.
Yeah, they won't.
So
Yeah, they
that's already
won't.
proves my point.
Yeah, I don't know if you think about the same
point.
person as well. We have a friend.
Oh no, I'm not talking about like
And
an
there's
individual.
a lot, and it's always like a good thing because like they have really good physiques. And then there was something to take away from what he said from you, and I do still think about it from time to time. And it's just like he's not someone that like trains religiously like 5-6 times a week. If he's not feeling it, he just won't train.
Yeah.
And then I feel like maybe that's why he looks so good.
Well,
because
like-
it's not about also like, you know, and I guess some people like, yeah, if you miss a couple of sessions, you probably not look that good. That's me. Like I need to be very on top of like, you know, training consistently. But some people can really get away with like doing less because their less is really that good, or just that like, you know, their genetics and stuff just really allows them to.
I think that's where we can talk about like quantitative and qualitative skills. Quantitative being measurable. This is what I learned from Haley. Thank you, Haley. And then qualitative skills being like, you know, how you feel, right? So like knowing when to have a rest day or like actually take the day off because you actually need to, because your sleep isn't very good, your water intake hasn't been good, your food intake hasn't been very good, and you actually like, look, I'm too fatigued, I can't train, so I'm not going to bother training. Or, you know, people who don't have that qualitative skill developed, they'll be like, oh, I need a rest day, just because they're being lazy. So like, you know, there's a fine, you have to kind of figure that out for yourself. But obviously that's why you work with a coach.
Yes.
Because that's why we can tell you exactly like, oh, whether or not the deload is needed or whether that day off is just completely needed. But like, hey, you just need to have a day off. Just have a day off.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things going on in your life, and these are areas that we don't want to sacrifice getting injured. We don't want you to have a shit session for no reason
Yeah.
and just come in
And
the
I
next
think
day
it's
and come in
heavily
harder.
relied on their job as well. Like,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so and our jobs as coaches is to always take into consideration what someone does for work.
Oh, yeah. it's
And
a
we
big
have
part
both
of it.
coached, like, especially people in the medical industry.
Mhm.
Like, literally, if they're just feeling a little bit, like, run down and it's not the best, like, they've done, like, I have, you know, people, like, clients, they do 24-hour shifts. How is this even legal? I don't even know. But, like, they do 24-hour shifts, and I'm like, if you're not feeling it, don't go to the gym. Freaking just skip. Like, don't even just go and sleep. Like, rest. You know, and sometimes you need a coach to give you that confidence to do that. I think because sometimes people feel the guilt maybe of not doing everything that they're like supposed to because it's written in their plan. But at the end of the day, like, you know, if you need a break, like.
But you have to, I think the biggest part about working with people in the medical field, and even like for myself, like police officers, firefighters, their levels of stress, they
Oh,
see
they think they're
stress
fine.
differently. They think they're fine
They
most
think they're
times.
fine.
Like if I was to deal with that, the stuff they have to deal with, like I've dealt with a cancer surgeon before, and I'm like, you're doing surgeries every day. How are you not scared? Like, I mean, I get that you have to have a sense of like, you know, being able to block this out and just do your
They're
job.
confident in what they
But
do.
I'm just
yeah.
like, this is super stressful though. Like I'll be freaking out like every day, like shit, am I doing a good job? That sort of stuff. So I feel like, you know, their perception of stress is different. And that's why having a coach on the outside to kind of like pull these people back down, like, hey, your stress levels actually are high. This is the
Yeah.
reason why the results haven't been exactly what you wanted in the past, because you see stress differently to what the everyday person would see stress as.
It's not. I think it's just that it's their new normal.
Yeah, it's a new normal.
That high
They're
level
so
of
level-
cortisol
they're
is
so-
their base level right now, which is definitely not the best position to be in, because that's where people kind of like get burnt out eventually, or like adrenal exhaustion and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's good to have someone to just tell you it's okay to have a day off if you need a day off.
That's why, like, for competing next year, I have no season A clients. It's purely just me because I know that I already have a lot of stress from my work job. Like, it's just like a lot of things I have to do. And so the capacity of my brain power, I know I'm not gonna have the capacity to prep someone as well, and so it's just not fair to them. So that's why I'm like gonna go into it prepared, and hopefully it looks by the sound of it that I'm gonna be able to do the show.
So when are you starting prep?
I will start very soon. Well, like I'm gonna start secretly without anyone knowing.
Yeah, like, are you gonna do a long one?
So I'm gonna do like a 20-week build, and then pretty much a 12, 16-week cut.
Ooh, that's fast.
Yeah, a short cut. I'm not gonna build like what people think, put on shit ton of body fat. And, like I want to be at least 12 weeks out ready.
Yeah.
Like so, I want to be like probably where I'm at now. Probably like I would say 3 or 4 kilos heavier, but just aim to really put on like proper quality size, and then cut down for like 12, 16 weeks, and then just go straight into the show.
How do you feel about people who feel like you need to like really, really bulk hard, as in like gain a lot of weight and
unwanted body fat,
and a lot of weight and body fat in order to quote unquote get massive?
I think like this is something we've answered. I think quite a lot. I think
Have we?
in the past, yeah. Oh, I've answered this quite. Actually,
I think we would talk about dirty bulking, different from people who like purposely
purposely put on body
bulk
fat. No,
properly with clean foods to purposely get fat.
We
like,
already know the stats of for males, 12, 18% is where you want to be. If you're higher than 80% body fat, you are too fat. And I'm gonna say that you need to cut down into this level ranges because hormonally you're gonna be in better position. It'd be less insulin resistant. But not only that, like you're in a position where your appetite's good, and obviously you're not like super full and dreading food and hating eating food and stuff like that. So I feel like, if your training is good, if your strength is going up and your recovery is good, you're sleeping fine, you're not food focused, your appetite's in a good spot, your satiety's in a good spot, then I think you don't need to push food that high. Like, I personally just don't have a big satiety anyways, and I'm pretty good with hunger anyway. So like for me,
Jeremy never gets hungry.
yeah, so I can literally diet on fucking low calories, but then eating wise, for me, like a surplus for some, it's just like maintenance. Like for me, if I eat maintenance, I feel good.
Yeah.
Like I'll get a good pump, I'll get a good energy, I'll get good performance in the gym. Won't feel like overweight or anything like that. Not food focused, like in a good spot.
I think girls get in their head about that a lot. Like, see, like Jeremy just mentioned that like he understands that his body, what is a surplus for him may not seem like a lot of food for other people. Whereas I think
100%.
girls, they almost want to wear a badge of honor to say like how high their food can get in the off
500
season.
carbs per day.
And I don't know why does that matter so much? Some people may actually need that much, but if for you, like if say like 2,000 calories is your surplus during that time, then like why do you feel upset about it? It's like what I never really understand.
They're comparing to other people.
Yeah,
like, this person's eating this much food, and I'm like, yeah, but they're like an ectomorph, and they can digest food really freaking well. Your body doesn't digest food very well. It doesn't mean that you should eat that much. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, isn't your goal just to be the best possible version of yourself or like reach your potential? So like corny as it sounds, that's the truth of it. Like if you can get results not eating that much food, why would you do that? It costs more money anyways.
Exactly.
Like if you can, it's like going out to drink. Would you rather be a Cadbury or would you rather be I don't know what's the opposite of a Cadbury?
Like a strong drinker.
A strong drinker. I'd rather be a Cadbury.
Spend more money on alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. They spend more money on alcohol.
I don't get
shit's
it.
expensive now. So
that's why like I never really got the other side of it. Like I guess they're just people that maybe don't have the best relationship with food or like a true food focus. But now ever since being in a surplus for a while, so basically like when I was leaner, my surplus was higher. Like when I was leaner, I could and needed to eat more food, but also my digestion and satiety levels allowed me to. It made me hungry enough to have to eat that higher amount of food. the heavier and fatter that I got, the deeper into my bulk I got, I realized that I don't actually need to eat that much food anymore because my body was kind of self-regulating. And also my hunger levels went down a lot to let me know that like, hey, like you're already eating in like excess, or like this the new maintenance. Like I was basically like just sort of maintaining, and I was trying to gain weight anyway. That was my point. I was like trying to gain weight. And during that time, when also obviously I'm someone that I love like finances and dealing with money and like all that kind of stuff, right? I have a degree in like accounting, so I love the numbers and stuff like that. And then I suddenly realized what a scam like the whole fit food industry is. Like when you think about it, since I was in a surplus and I needed to eat more foods in order to gain the weight that I needed in order to gain muscle. And then I was starting to wonder why like things that were like lower in calories were more expensive. Like I was just like, it would be such a waste of money for me to eat strawberries and blueberries because they're like lower in carbs but like really expensive. And then if you think about like say if someone were to eat something dirtier like a fast food that was like really, really high in calories, and that would be cheaper. And then I thought about like Coke Zero or like any of the you know how we used to eat like the healthier chips or like worse, the healthy ice cream, the low calorie ice cream, and they just be so expensive. And I'm like,
But I think everyone knows this.
yeah,
though.
like for what reason? Because like when you think about it, it's kind of silly that you're paying more for less calories, but then people think it's good because they want to eat more food because they're like, oh,
No, because they're bioengineered food that tastes good at lower calories.
but it doesn't
That's
even
what you're
taste
paying
good. It
for.
tastes like shit.
Well, it's all.
I promise you, the connoisseur and the Ben and Jerry's taste a million
it
times
makes
better.
dieting easier for some people.
But it's not dieting. It's like so someone who's not even dieting because they mentally want to eat more food, so they end up spending more money on the lower calorie food so they can eat more. And then
Oh no, like quality of food is important, especially in a building phase. You can't think you're gonna eat these fun foods. Like have some fun foods, but like you're not gonna eat all fun foods because it's virtually impossible. It's gonna cost you an arm and leg. But if you have the money to spend it, go ahead. No one's gonna stop you.
yeah.
But if you tell us, oh, it's a bit expensive, we'll be like, whoa, yeah, go eat rice and some
I don't
potatoes.
think things like Halo Top and
Yeah.
stuff are actually healthy for you, like with all the artificial sweetness
I mean,
and things
we
like
could
that.
talk about how holistic things can be, and that's safe for a different podcast because we can talk about pesticides and all that stuff.
We don't need to talk about pesticides. I'm just saying like the money aspect of when you think about it as like
Yeah, but
someone who's
we
just
can though.
You know what?
I mean, like you can say that strawberries are riddled with pesticides, and
Yeah,
they're probably most known for pesticides.
and it's like
So
I
what
buy
should you
organic
have it?
strawberries, so they're even more expensive.
Exactly. So like realistically, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
but
so
it's just, that's just how messed up the world was. And then you are the one who actually
the
brought
world
this
is
up.
still messed up.
No, you're the one. You're the one who brought it up that like if there were actually no processed food in the world, like people might probably starve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's crazy.
I actually thought about that. The other
yeah,
day,
like and that's actually crazy. And I'm like, oh my
it's
god,
scary
because
to think that
because they need the processed foods because they're cheap and high calories because you need
Correct.
calories to live.
because there's no farms producing organic food that can last long enough to supply fuel for people in this world.
yeah,
So as much as people think that, fast food, processed foods are bad, I'm like,
It's
you
actually
do
needed.
realize that people are going to starve to death if we didn't have that
yeah.
anymore. But who can we blame for this?
Yeah, like that. I mean, it's just it's like
I
a
mean,
never-ending cycle.
the government has created it, and it's I don't know if it's consumerism that like has caused this trend that like there's more population, we don't have enough
resources
resources
to feed the world.
Yeah. So what happens? They have to now 3D print meat.
So prep is a privilege, guys.
It's kind of scary actually when you think about it. So if you are in a position to eat,
if you can
food
even
and-
diet, if
and
you can
eat-
even think of like dieting and eating clean, if that is even an option for you, you are like you should be so grateful that you can even do that. Because
Exactly.
for some people, instant noodles is all they can afford for the day. And it's great because it's like 500-600 calories.
I mean, instant noodles taste
and
pretty
it
good,
tastes freaking amazing.
but it's made of wax
and
and
it's like
kettle wax.
$1 a packet, I think, if you buy the big
Exactly,
packets.
yeah.
So you can feed yourself with like 500 calories for $1. So, I mean, for people who don't have, a lot of money in like the other countries and stuff, this is really like their only option. So,
Like, eating meat is not common. People are like, oh, just eat more meat in an Asian country. And I'm like, you do
It's
realize
crazy
that it's full of
expensive.
carbs and it's crazy expensive there
Yeah.
compared to what it is here. Like the opportunity and that we are able to eat meat is like we should be super grateful for.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're in a position to diet, just be grateful.
Sweet. So should we wrap it up there? Like, how long has it
Yeah.
been?
I actually don't know. 51 minutes. We can play a quick game before we end.
All right, let's play a quick game.
Okay. So I prepared a quick game. It's just quick fire, overrated or underrated. So I'm going to give you a few, I guess, topics, and you just have to be like overrated or underrated. You can give a quick explanation, but not too long because I know you like to
Okay.
babble. All right. Overrated or underrated? Squats.
Underrated.
Yeah, I think it's underrated too. Overrated or underrated? Keto.
Cool. I don't know how many people actually do it in life. So, like, is it what I think
No, it's just like in
from what I know?
yeah, like when people talk about it, like in the media or like just as a topic in general, is keto.
I think a lot of people say keto is shit. So that's what
I think a lot of people
say.
don't say shit though. It's like heavily promoted, no?
I don't know. I think it's the people I follow, and a lot of my people I follow will say that.
I think the people you follow are not
it's-
mainstream though. But
yeah,
I mean,
exactly, they're not
I'm just saying like
mainstream.
in general.
Oh, then it's overrated for sure.
Yeah, I think it's overrated as well. Fasting.
Yeah, probably overrated as well.
Overrated, yes.
Mm.
Drop sets.
Yeah, overrated for sure.
Mm, yeah, I think it is overrated as well.
Yeah, because a lot of people talk about set intensifiers, and it's so
Yeah.
common for people to be like, I drop sets.
They think drop sets are cool. It's a
And
new
I'm
cool
like,
thing to do. It's the
you
trend.
know, why don't you train harder in your working sets and you won't need to drop sets?
I mean, I love drop setting, not gonna lie.
Drop sets are great.
I
I'm
fucking
not
love
saying
it.
it's stupid,
Yeah.
but I just feel like people
is
rely on
overrated,
it
though.
too much that
Yes, yeah.
their working sets are so shit because they're just like, oh, I'm just going to drop set at the end anyways.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't you make your working sets really good
Yeah.
and freaking painful? That
Yeah.
drop set, it's going to hurt even more.
Exactly. I'm like, make it all hard, make it all hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely overrated. I think people need to get to the basics first. All right, this is my favorite. Body fat calipers. Overrated or underrated?
I think overrated.
I think it's so overrated.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into detail as to
I
why?
think you should go into it because you sound like you were waiting for this one.
No, this is just my favorite one because it just always like blows my mind. I'm like, why should your happiness ever be tied to someone literally pinching your skin and then telling you what your body fat percentage is? It doesn't matter whether your lifestyle, it doesn't matter whether you're going on stage. If your like skin caliper folds are like small but you're still looking like not lean enough for stage, then buddy, you still need to diet. I don't care what your skin folds say. Like, it doesn't really matter.
I think it's a step that helps people along the process because sometimes,
But it might really mess with them
let's
mentally.
say in the first 4 weeks of dieting, you know, like you might not see much weight loss, maybe 2 kilos. You might not see many physical changes, but when you do the body fat changes, they're obviously due to human error. To be fair, they might be still off, but like total meals could still come down all around.
But then
so
we do
like,
measurements. So wouldn't the measurements come down?
maybe, yeah.
Why
most
would
likely.
the measurements not come down, but the body fat, like skin folds, came down?
I think it's more accurate reading than measurements, but like they're both all great measurements. I mean, they're all measurements at the end of the day.
And also, like all the top online coaches, like in the US and stuff, what they believe is that our jobs as coaches, we should be able to see in a photo and like in real life if someone has gotten leaner without needing to rely on like freaking pinching them and shit. Like why?
That is our job. Like I
Yeah,
can
that is our
literally,
job.
I will admit that I'm pretty good at calling out how much more kilos someone has to
yeah,
lose.
yeah. And you don't need
and
to
I'm
pinch
pretty
someone
accurate
to
most
like
times because I think
like-
I had a client tell me, oh, like they're competing and like I was like, you probably have to drop like this certain amount of weight. And then I remember he did a body fat test, like actual like those ones you stand on, whatever. Obviously, we know they're inaccurate
I hate
sometimes.
those as well.
But then the measurement was exactly right. Like I actually predicted the right amount of body fat he needed to lose to be the percentage we needed to be.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, that just comes from experience. Just like watching a lot to know how deep someone has to go to actually get the results. Obviously, you know, get to where they need to be. So I think visual change is the most important.
Yeah, and for
And then,
lifestyle
you know,
especially,
as
like
a coach, we all should have the ability to visual change.
Exactly.
I mean, measurements don't mean shit if you still look like you need to lose body
yeah,
fat.
if you're
If your goal is to earn abs, isn't your goal to see the abs?
Yeah,
Why
just
does it
see the
matter what?
abs. You don't
What
need to
if your
measure
body
it with
fat
the
says
calipers.
you're 12%, but I still can't see your
You
abs?
can't see
I'm
your abs,
sure
you need to diet
you're
more,
still
honey.
not gonna see your abs. You know, so like that doesn't change anything. So, but then I
Yeah.
think some coaches might manipulate sometimes, you know, the measurements as well. Like
What
they
if
might
they're
just
even
clip it in the wrong
lying?
places.
Oh,
Exactly,
like
just
what
to
if they
like.
actually just like when they clip the
It's
first one,
it's
they're just
really
gonna tell
hard
you that it's a
to.
little bit more than
I think
it is.
sometimes some people have like thicker skin and it's hard to pinch
Yeah,
because I've done
yeah.
pinch tests and it's just hard.
Yeah.
Like I can't even predict myself. I'm like pinching. I'm like this ain't working.
And some people, like you have tried to pinch like my leg body fat.
Mhm.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Like just because my skin is so like I don't know, like is it
Just
tight
tough,
or filled
yeah,
with
thick,
collagen?
yeah.
I don't know.
Full
Like
of
it's just
collagen, something like
it's the
that.
collagen in it. It's difficult to do. So then I think some people
It
might
goes like
just
a little kid.
yeah, okay, I have baby skin. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when it comes to lifestyle, I really rather my client like how they look in the mirror and how they feel in clothes than to like have to rely on like the skin folds to give them validation that they're doing good. I want them to just be able to be proud of themselves, even if it's like just nothing to do with all of this kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I got stronger today. I feel more energized. I'm sleeping better. I'm happier. And then if the skin folds don't say the same, or why should you be depressed about that? Like that's just one extra thing and one extra negativity in your life that you don't need as like a lifestyle client. Like why should you want to like kind of worry about like your skin folds? It just really makes no sense at
Even
all.
like body fat tests, you know, I never did them for comp.
Yeah, like I actually don't know my body fat percentage
just
ever.
did photos, or my coaches back then would just see me in person.
Yeah, they just look at you. If you're not lean enough, you're not lean enough. They don't need
it.
to pinch you
We
with the
weigh
body fat
myself
calipers
daily.
today.
We didn't even track that, honestly. We'd just be like, what was your weight today? Oh, okay, we need to
Yeah.
get leaner.
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
if you need to get leaner, you need to
Actually,
get
now
leaner.
that I think about it, I think that's literally how I did my last preps.
Just
Yeah, it would have
looking
been
at you,
just.
yeah.
It was just it wasn't like any app, no Google sheet. I don't think it was just literally checking in person. What was your weight? That was it. You need to be leaner.
Yeah, it's just old school. Did
Like-
you lose weight? No, and you still look fat. Okay, diet harder.
Yeah, that was literally it. Now we have like averages, we have measurements, and I'm just like, come on, like if you gotta get lean, I don't know why people just don't create that grit and just do the work. Like why? Oh, if you have to do 2 hours of cardio, fucking do it.
You've done it right.
I've done it.
I
I've done an hour and a
haven't,
half, and I remember the good old days, an hour and a half after PT. You know, at night I'll be just like on a cross trainer, sweating my balls
Oh,
off.
I tell you, when Jeremy's on the cross
Oh
trainer,
my
like he really
God.
goes hard on the cross trainer. Like he literally
I'm
pushes
max 20,
the intensity
24.
to the max.
Every
like,
machine, every time I do cross training, that's the only way I do it. Like even now that I'm unfit, I will do cross training.
like when he's
on max
pushing
level.
the cross trainer thing, it
I just
really
don't-
looks
I
like
just
he's
don't know
using
why
his
people
muscles.
don't do it that way. I'm like, come on, if you're like my weight, you definitely have to do max level.
Nah,
and
I
if you're
only push it up,
heavier
like,
than me,
3 or 4
have to do that
levels.
level. If you're lighter than me by 10 kilos, you still have to be like close to that.
I don't think I can even push it.
Okay, yeah, for you can't.
I do,
because
like,
you're not
level
built for
4
the
or some
machine. But
shit.
anyone that's around my height, a bit shorter than me, I think like it has to be max level.
It has to be max.
Only
Alright,
max
everyone, you
level.
heard it here. If
I'm like, you gotta treat cardio like how you do weights. Like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. And then
put your
even,
cross trainer to
I'd rather
max
do,
level.
but then you rather do it at 20 minutes than have to do an hour of like a low resistance. Why? Because you're just going like this. You're just wasting time. I'd rather just like, you know, go hard and go home. You know, it's not that hard.
I think we're sidetracking. Okay,
Yeah.
let's have do a few more.
few more.
Okay, like last one, protein timing.
From what people say or what I think. That's
Or
what I
what
want.
do you think the general consensus is?
Oh, but the general consensus is everyone does talk about it.
Okay, so then that's what it is. So yeah.
So is that overrated or underrated?
Do you think it's overrated that so many people talk about it? Or do you think more people should talk about it? Yeah, that's what you should be like, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
do you think more people should talk about it? Like it should be more important, or that people put it too high on like their priority list?
Ooh, protein intake's hard. 'Cause
Timing.
protein timing is
Yeah.
hard because I feel like it is underrated and overrated.
Yeah.
Because I think like it can be like very much like if you talk about protein intake, like some people will be like you have to eat 5 or 6 meals a day or spread out 5-6 times a day. But realistically, it's not realistic in a real lifestyle like situation. So maybe like doing 3 or 4 is more than enough. Like you don't need to have this 5, 6, 7 meals a day to be an optimal bodybuilder. But that's just like talking about like bodybuilders and lifestyle, completely different. Like
Yeah,
the
I would say
protein-
in lifestyle, it's underrated.
In lifestyle, yes, it's
Yeah.
probably it
People
needs to,
think that like,
people need to
oh,
focus
you
on
know,
it. Yeah.
especially if they don't really, they're new to even counting calories and macros
Mm.
and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, I eat steak for dinner. Like I would just eat like a high protein dinner or whatever. Like they don't
Mm.
feel, especially in the Asian countries and stuff, they don't feel like they don't understand the importance of like having
Correct.
protein in every single meal. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be like evenly spread out. Like you don't need to smash a protein shake straight after training, but it's just have protein in all your meals. It's very important, and I think in that realm, it's underrated.
Yeah, and then in the bodybuilding
In
industry,
bodybuilding, it's a little bit
a
overrated.
little bit
A little
overrated.
bit.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Like, not saying it's bad. If you
Yeah.
have the time,
It's fine. It's fine
if
to
you
be
have the
perfect and with your
time
protein. Yeah.
to have 5 6 meals there, go ahead. Be
Yeah,
our guest.
yeah.
We're not gonna stop you. But if it affects your life and quality of life, because you're like, oh my god, I have to eat now like every 2 hours, and you have to prep all this food just to like bring all these containers, then yeah, maybe you should try to do less the time. Like that's a simple fix. It just depends on how far you want to go and how priority this is for you. But yeah.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up here.
Right. Okay, sweet guys. If you enjoyed this podcast, hopefully you guys did. If you guys do have any questions or anything you want to ask myself or Nicole, please ask us. And please drop us any questions for our next podcast as well.
Or
We always
topics or
like any
whatever.
topics that you guys might have. We're gonna try to do some couch talks in the future. So let us know if there's anyone else you want us to get on the podcast. And then yeah, we'll see you guys in the next podcast.
Bye.
Peace out.